Having the correct surveillance equipment is essential for a private investigator conducting surveillance today. But the first thing you need to prepare for your surveillance is not an actual piece of equipment. Rather, it is an effective cover sheet. I know many people don't use cover sheets anymore. They don't take printouts with them. Rather, they rely on having access to that vital information on their phones. Based on past experiences, having need to have that info from a cover sheet and not being able to access it has created some major headaches for me. I have ran into situations many times out in the country, up in the mountains, in a downtown parking garage, or anywhere where I have weak or no cell phone signal where I can't access anything electronically. As well, if I need to reference it quickly while driving, I can grab a piece of paper that is sitting on the passenger seat a lot easier and safer than fumbling through my cell phone trying to find it. A basic cover sheet that I use has the subject's name, photographs, addresses, vehicle descriptions with license plates printed in bold letters so I can easily find it and other basic case information. This video is sponsored by OREP Insurance and Working PI Magazine. OREP is a leading provider of private investigator liability insurance. Visit orep.org for a quote today. To go along with the cover sheet, you need a pen and paper to take notes. I will usually jot down my field notes right on my cover sheet. Again, I know many investigators use their phones, but again, in the rush of events during surveillance, it is a lot faster to grab a piece of paper and a pencil and jot down a license plate number, an address, the name of a store, or other important information. Now, a cell phone is a vital piece of equipment these days for a surveillance investigator for many reasons. First off, it is your lifeline out there. If something goes wrong, you need to be able to call for assistance quickly. You also may need to call a client, run searches on databases, do research on the internet, and other things with your cell phone. Most PIs also don't use a regular GPS any longer. They just rely on their cell phone for GPS navigation. However, I still have a Garmin GPS unit in my surveillance car. There are a couple of reasons for having this as a backup to the GPS on your phone. When you get into those remote areas, such as in the mountains or out in the country or even in downtown areas, if your cell phone loses its signal, you lose your navigation. Most GPS units, though, use different technology and will usually still work in these remote areas. I also like having a regular GPS unit in the event I need to be utilizing my phone for other things like talking to clients or other investigators that are with me on a surveillance. Now, binoculars are another must-have for any surveillance investigator. You may not need to use them often, but when you need them, well, you need them. Sure, you may have great zoom on your camera, but nothing can replace the control and vision ability like a good pair of binoculars, and you don't need to get really expensive ones either. A good basic pair will be fine as long as it is durable. Durability is a key thing to remember for all of your surveillance equipment. That equipment will get tossed around, jostled around, and, well, misused a lot. So make sure your equipment is made of good, durable material. You also need a flashlight, but again, nothing super fancy. I carry a couple of those little promotional flashlights around in my car that I have gotten at trade shows. They usually have good battery life, and the LED ones put out plenty of light. That is another one of those pieces of equipment that you don't need often, but when you need one, you simply need one. Again, I know you may have a flashlight app on your phone, but many times having a separate one and one not as bright as the one on your phone is necessary. I find myself using a flashlight to find other pieces of equipment in the dark in my vehicle and when on foot surveillance to see where I am walking and to look at license plates or addresses. Window tinting and sunshades are also necessary for any successful investigator too. I also use black foam core cutout sheets I get from the local craft store, and I cut them into the shape of my side windows so I can pop them in and use them to black out inside the surveillance vehicle. Not only will this help you stay covert inside your surveillance vehicle, they will help you stay cool in there too. One of the main pieces of equipment a surveillance investigator needs is a high-quality video camera. This doesn't have to be some super fancy high-cost camera. It doesn't have to shoot 4K video, but it must be durable and have certain features you will need for surveillance. I always recommend surveillance cameras that can shoot video in 1080p with at least 40x optical zoom. 30x is okay, 50x is better, but that is optical zoom, not digital zoom. Your camera should also have some low light or low lux capabilities and have date timestamp built into it along with a good flip out view screen. Let's cover those specifications and features in detail really quick for your camera. First, you want 1080p at least, not 1080i, but 1080p. Cheap cameras will fool you with 1080i. Here's the difference. With 1080i interlaced video, each frame is divided into two fields, one with odd number lines, the top field, and another with even number lines, the bottom field. These fields are displayed in rapid succession to create the illusion of motion. The problem is that the interlacing process can cause tearing effect or combing artifacts on moving objects. With 1080p progressive video, each frame is rendered as a single complete image with all lines scanned at once. There are no fields to worry about, just one smooth progressive scan of the entire frame. This results in more natural and detailed video. Now some PIs want 4K, and that is great, but 4K makes very large video files. You also have to remember, you are not trying to get Hollywood-style videography out there. We just need good, clear video evidence, and 1080p works fine. The problem we usually see when investigators use 4K is related to the size of the video file that they need to upload. Then the client has to download it. Not to mention that large video files are quite difficult to edit and require more sophisticated video editing software and hardware. And to be honest, I see little to no difference between 1080p and 4K video while watching surveillance video on a computer screen. So I suggest save yourself some trouble and aggravation and stick to 1080p. Even if your camera shoots 4K, change it to 1080p for basic surveillance jobs. A good surveillance camera should also have good optical zoom, like 30x to 50x. Make sure you look at optical zoom, not digital zoom, as you never want to use digital zoom while shooting surveillance video. Digital zoom is usually much lower in video quality. A good sized flip out screen is also necessary so you can see what you're recording and be able to keep an eye on your surroundings. The day of pulling the camera up to your eye and looking through a viewfinder are over. Another great feature for your surveillance camera is night vision or low light or low lux capabilities. Now don't expect night vision like the military or police or James Bond have. It just needs to be good enough to make out what is going on and tell who is who in the video. Date and timestamp is another must-have feature you need for your video camera. Most cameras have this. It puts the date and the time in the metadata for your video file. Then you can use special software like IVE, Investigation Video Editor, that will pull the date and timestamp out of the metadata in the video and place the time and the date stamp in the video for you so it is visually part of the video. Besides a primary camera, every great surveillance investigator has to have a backup camera too. Yes, you should invest in a good backup camera just in case something happens to your primary camera. I have had this happen to me in the past. Drop my camera while jumping out of the car to go on foot surveillance and having my camera broken. Luckily, I had a backup camera and was ready to continue on with just a slight hiccup in my day. I would recommend having a backup camera that is the same or very similar to your main surveillance camera too. Okay, now that you have your cameras, you need something to hold them. I use a good standard tripod, but I usually use it with 3 legs down and use it as a monopod. Some surveillance investigators prefer to have both tripod and monopod. The problem with using both is if you use the monopod and then you need to switch to the tripod to shoot a long piece of video while stationary, you have to stop and change the gear in the middle of your surveillance. Okay, there's one other camera you need for proper surveillance. That is a covert camera or a spy cam. Many PIs today just use their cell phone, and that is okay for many situations, but not all, to be sure. I use covert spy cams made by Lawmate. I have multiple covert or spy cams I take with me on surveillance. My covert cell phone cam, key fob cam, and pen cam are my go-to covert cameras. If you're just getting started, these might be out of your budget. So your cell phone may be what you have to start with, but if you can work it into your budget, these are highly valuable in obtaining critical video inside stores, bars, restaurants, and other places while on foot surveillance. Please save yourself a lot of headaches too. Don't go on eBay and buy the knockoff $10 spy cams from China. You get what you pay for, folks. If you want to see the gear I use to, then head over to howtobeapi.com. Next, let's talk about power. You need to ensure everything you have stays charged up. I recommend a good DC to AC power converter battery jumper box for this. The one I use has a built-in DC to AC power converter, a 12-volt power plug, and multiple USB ports. I try to plug my equipment into this when in use or if I'm charging it instead of using my vehicle power. In the event my vehicle power does get low and I need a jump, I can use this to jump start my car too. Take it from someone who knows you will drain your battery one day while out on surveillance. This is a definite lifesaver. Food and water is of the utmost necessity to ensure you stay healthy and hydrated too. I only take dry foods along with me like nuts and fruit mixes, that kind of stuff. And of course, I eat sparingly. I try to make sure what food I have has little to no sugar and is high in protein. I also keep a case of water in my vehicle as well as some of those Gatorades for those hot days. You may start out thinking you're on a 4 or 6 hour case and it could end up being 12, 16 or more hours. So having a food supply with you is obviously very important. The most needed and least talked about piece of surveillance equipment you need is portable bathroom utilities. Yep, there you go. This is an absolute necessity for every surveillance investigator. You can't just break surveillance and run to the nearest gas station or fast food joint every time you have to go. If you do this, you will most assuredly run into Murphy's Law. If anything can't go wrong, it will go wrong. You will get back on surveillance and find your subject has gone, or worse, not find out your subject's gone, but he has left. There is nothing worse than sitting out on surveillance for 6 hours only to see your target, whom you thought was in his house, come home from a day of shopping with his wife. How are you going to explain that to your client? So how do you take care of nature's calls on surveillance? For us guys, it's a little simpler. Remember those water bottles? Remember those Gatorade bottles? You can simply repurpose them, guys. Just please make sure you dispose of the waste properly. And ladies, I'm no expert, so you will have to find ways on your own. I know, all the glamour and the glory, all of those visions of chasing bad guys, getting the money shot, hiding in dark corners, all your dreams about being a surveillance investigator just went out the window. The cold, hard truth about surveillance, folks, it is exciting at times. It is very boring at times. And it takes some special equipment, forethought, and planning to ensure it goes smoothly. But it can also be very rewarding to be a surveillance investigator.